So, as you may know, we're roughly 30 days away from the NBA season starting, and around this time every year, we get a top 100 players in the NBA currently, and this year we got a top 50 players of all time. And this list comes to us from Bleacher Report, made by a guy named Andrew Bailey, and I'm just going to put a screenshot up there to kind of get you guys to help understand who this guy is and what he values in his list. So, as you can see, he's really into advanced metrics, advanced stats, and personally, I don't think that's the best way to evaluate a player. I think stats can be easily manipulated, and just looking at some of my pure raw stats or advanced stats, you really don't gauge how good of a basketball player they were, and some of these players didn't even play with these advanced stats, or even had knowledge of them. So, it's super hard to just use raw stats to evaluate players. But nonetheless, we're going to evaluate his list, and I'm going to have a few key points that I'm going to touch on, and players I think are grossly underrated or vastly overrated on his list. So the first one that caught my eye was pretty early, and it was the 47 spot. It was Isiah Thomas. Yes, Isiah Thomas. In my opinion, a top 5 point guard of all time, ranking at number 47 on this guy's list. And how does Isiah Thomas rank at number 47 on his list? He's a two-time NBA champion. He was the leader of the Bad Boy Pistons, won a Finals MVP. He had like 25 points in one quarter in the NBA Finals on basically a broken ankle. Isiah Thomas was iconic players. He revolutionized the game for the small guards. He went head-to-head against Magic Johnson. He actually won an All-NBA first-team vote over Magic Johnson. That speaks volumes to how good Isiah Thomas was. And basically in this guy's list, he says the eye test numbers, they don't really pop out to him. And basically the guy ranks him at 47 because he says he's inefficient point guard and his numbers weren't eye-popping enough, even though he had a 6.4 playoff box plus minus. Are we really boiling down to a box plus minus to evaluate players? Isiah Thomas, a two-time champion, Finals MVP, that's at least top 40. That's not even debatable, but you're going off box plus minus. He's a 12-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, and as I said before, two-time NBA champion and a Finals MVP. How Isiah Thomas ranks at 47, I have no idea. And it's going to shock you even more when you see who's at 46. At 46, you have Pau Gasol. Now, let that sink in a minute. Pau Gasol, who at best was a second option on a championship team with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I don't know if this guy is just, does he hate Kobe Bryant? Does he want to boost up Kobe's teammates to bring Kobe down? But how does Pau Gasol crack a top 50 all-time list? And basically this guy's reasoning is that Pau Gasol helped influence the game like Garnett and Nowitzki. And I'll say Pau Gasol, he was a good passer. He was a European big man, 7-footer. And he did have an effect on changing the game. But did he really have anyone saying, oh, I want to find the next Pau Gasol. I want to see who is the next Pau Gasol. We need someone like Pau Gasol. I don't really think anyone thought that or anyone wanted that. I could be wrong, but I don't remember anyone saying Pau Gasol, oh, that's the guy you have to be a championship team or a championship contender. And he also gives the reasoning that Pau Gasol's blocks plus minus over two postseasons was comparable to Kobe Bryant's with 6.4 to 6.7. Again, box plus minus, we're really using that to evaluate players. I just don't understand this guy's methods for evaluating all-time lists. We're just going to boil it down to box plus minus, and you're putting him over Isiah Thomas. Just keep that in mind. And kind of staying in the high 40s, at 45 he has George Gervin, which George Gervin, he put up great stats, but he didn't really accomplish anything in his time with the Spurs, and he played mainly in the ABA in the 70s, and as many of you know, when the ABA-NBA merger happened, they did weaken the NBA to a certain degree. So George Gervin at 45 over Isiah Thomas, how is that? I don't see how that works on an all-time list. And one of my favorite players of all time, Ray Allen, he's at 44. Even Ray Allen over Isiah Thomas, that just screams blasphemy to me. I just don't understand. I can't comprehend how Ray Allen is ahead of Isiah Thomas. And I know I might sound like an Isiah Thomas fan, or like, oh, he's biased with Isiah Thomas. I have no, he's a Pistons. I don't care about the Detroit Pistons. I'm just showing you guys that Isiah Thomas is grossly underrated on this list. I'm just going to keep reiterating. You have Reggie Miller at 43. Reggie Miller went to one NBA Finals appearance when he was older with the Indiana Pacers team, and he basically kind of fizzled out in the mid-2000s and he had to retire. He was going to attempt a brief comeback, but Reggie Miller, aside from his total stats, he leads the Pacers in virtually every total stat. I don't see how you can say Reggie Miller is better than Isiah Thomas. And I guarantee you, if you ask Reggie himself, he would say he's not even close to where Isiah Thomas was. I mean, Isiah Thomas was a legit number one superstar on a championship team. Reggie Miller, he was seen as a star on a championship team who was a first option. But I mean, comparing Reggie to Isiah, you're getting into like some murky waters. I mean, even Reggie himself would say he's no Isiah Thomas. So, moving on from the Isiah Thomas thing, let's get on to who ranks at number 42 on this guy's list. And that is Kawhi Leonard. And some of you may say, oh, Kawhi is too low or too high. I'm not really focused on that right now. I'm focused on who he is relative to. And at the 41 spot, we have one of my favorite players, being a Celtics fan, Paul Pierce. So let's just look at this objectively. I'm going to keep all my Celtics bias out. And I'm just going to say Kawhi Leonard, a two-time NBA champion, two-time Finals MVP, and his playoff run with the Raptors, that was better than any playoff run Paul Pierce ever had. And I know Paul Pierce 08, that was a great run. The 08 Celtics, one of my favorite teams of all time. But I mean, it's arguable KG should have won Finals MVP, or even Ray Allen should have won Finals MVP. And Kawhi Leonard has 2 Finals MVPs and 2 championships. And some of you may rebuttal and say, oh, well, Kawhi, he wasn't really the man on that Spurs team in 2014. And I'll agree with that. But in my opinion, Kawhi's run last year alone should put him over Paul Pierce. And Paul Pierce, he played on some pretty garbage Celtics teams during the mid-2000s, and I think it was the worst team in the NBA in 06-07, and it looked like he was going to leave Boston. So, I mean, I am a Paul Pierce fan till I die, but I don't see how you can put him one spot above Kawhi Leonard. Now, we've gone over Isiah Thomas, Kawhi, and Paul Pierce, so I want you to keep those 3 players in mind specifically. Isiah Thomas, Kawhi, and Paul Pierce. And when I say this next name, who ranks number 37, tell me if those 3 players rank higher all time. The guy at 37 was Manu Ginobili. This was probably the most shocking thing, well, maybe not the most shocking thing, but just the most mind-blowing, and like, I can't fathom how Manu Ginobili cracks a top 50 all time. I know he has the championships, he was with Duncan, Parker, but I mean, early in those runs, Manu Ginobili, he really was like a lesser role player. I know he developed into a greater role player later, and he was a vital part of the San Antonio teams. But I mean, he only made 2 All-Star teams, and he was seen as basically a supporting cast to Duncan. Now, in this guy's explanation, he tries to bring in the Olympics in Argentina and pulling off a shocking upset. So, I mean, this is an NBA all-time list, and you're bringing in Argentina winning gold in the 04 Olympics. That's just disqualification right there of your list. You're bringing in outside NBA basketball to rank Manu Ginobili at number 37 all-time. That makes absolutely no sense, and I want you guys to keep that in mind. Manu Ginobili at number 37. And at 36, we have Russell Westbrook. He is one of my lesser favorite players. I mean, I get a bad rap for saying, well, you hate Russell Westbrook, my friends. But I mean, having Westbrook one spot above Manu, I would vouch for Russell Westbrook. I mean, those 2 players, just look at them collectively. Westbrook is way better than Manu Ginobili, and they shouldn't even be close on an all-time list. Another player people think I don't like, but I really do admire his game, is James Harden. And at this list, James Harden ranks at number 27 all-time, which I think is pretty high considering James Harden's lack of success in the playoffs. I think it's still a debate between him and Iverson, battling out the top 5 shooting guards of all time. Some people just look at James Harden's gaudy stats and they say, oh, that's easily a top 50 player all time. But for me, I like to look at more the whole body of work. And over these past 5 to 6 years, Harden has definitely been a top 50 player of all time. But looking at just everything, not just regular season, looking at postseason performances, underwhelming in the playoffs. And he was going against the Juggernaut Warriors. But when you have the Warriors minus KD at home and you lose, that really kind of takes a lot out of your resume. I'm starting to doubt James Harden will ever break through. As I said before, I'm not a big fan of Russell Westbrook, but they are on the same team now. And it will be interesting to see how they kind of coexist and see if they can break through, become a championship team with no clear favorite in the West. But that's kind of off topic. And the main reason this guy ranks him that high is his playoff box plus minus, which ranks 13th all time. And once again, let's just sit back and say, are we really ranking players all time based on career box plus minus? Does that tell the whole story, the whole resume of a player's career? I'll let you guys decide that. I'm not going to answer that question, but I think you guys know where I stand. So from 26 to 15, I didn't see anything that really stood out. I thought it was pretty solid, and I will give this guy credit. It's really hard to make a top 50 all-time list, and I think he did have some consistency besides the areas I named, but I just have to point out, at number 14, we have Kobe Bean Bryant. And as I said before, I don't know what this guy's problem is with Kobe. Is he one of the people who says he's inefficient, he's a shot chucker, he's the leading missed shot player of all time? Is that why he ranks Kobe at number 14 all time? And in his explanation why Kobe's number 14, he really doesn't give a solid explanation of why Kobe is at 14. He kind of just says positive things about him. He doesn't really go into the negatives of why Kobe ranks at number 14. He gives us advanced stats again: net rating, swing, box plus minus, relative true shooting percentage, per 75 possession stats. I mean, all that stuff, I personally throw that all out the window. You just got to look at the player, look at the raw stats with context, understanding the era he played in. And Kobe Bryant played in the most defensive era of all time, and he was able to win 5 championships and be a 2-time Finals MVP. So Kobe Bryant at number 14 all time, how does that work? And when you see who's in front of him, I think you're going to get particularly upset. Now, another thing I have to touch on, at number 13 and number 12, we have Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson. Yes, I said that right. This guy ranked David Robinson at the 12th best player of all time over Hakeem Olajuwon. So I'm just going to throw it out right now. 1995 playoffs, Hakeem Olajuwon absolutely took David Robinson's lunch, and he just dominated him on both ends of the floor. I mean, that should automatically just give you the edge, Hakeem over David Robinson. And Hakeem, a 2-time champion, he had the toughest road to the finals ever. He won a championship as a 6th seed, lowest seed ever to do it. And he's a 2-time Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and an MVP. And David Robinson, he never won a championship till the great Tim Duncan came along. And when he won his 2nd championship, he was older and aging, and he wasn't that same Robinson that he was in his younger years. And I mean, again, this guy goes with some obscure win shares per 48 minutes, 25.05 to 25.02. I don't understand all these advanced stats and how you're kind of selectively picking win shares per 48 minutes to put Robinson over Hakeem. I mean, just look at, it's obvious. I mean, Hakeem, he destroyed David Robinson in their playing time. And when he's talking about David Robinson and Hakeem, he does touch on the playoff series and how Hakeem dominated him. And his reasoning for putting Robinson over him is by saying, but cherry-picking stats from one playoff series when there's over 1,000 game sample size, that's not correct. But what I would say to that is, you really just kind of nitpicked players' careers. You didn't look at Isiah Thomas' full career. You didn't look at Kawhi's full career. And you just boil it down to pointless box plus minus stats. And I mean, look at his explanation at the end. When you look at the numbers for their entire careers, Robinson has the higher lead in box plus minus, win shares per 48 minutes, true shooting percentage, and playoff win shares per 48 minutes. So you're telling me those advanced garbage stats are why you put David Robinson over Hakeem Olajuwon? Not because David Robinson never won a championship without Duncan, not because Hakeem won 2 championships with probably the least supporting cast ever, and 2 Finals MVPs going back to back. I mean, I don't understand it. It boggles my mind how this guy is even working at Bleacher Report, why he uses these box plus minus stats and true shooting percentage to rank players over certain players, when we have just look at championships, career, awards, their play. Hakeem Olajuwon, arguably, he's more skilled than David Robinson, arguably a top 5 skilled player of all time. I do have him as a top 5 skilled player of all time. Go watch the film. Go check it out. I mean, Hakeem Olajuwon, amazing to watch. I've talked enough about this. Let's move on. And the last super controversial thing that happened in this list was putting Steph Curry at number 10 all time. And I've already elaborated on how Steph Curry, he changed the game of basketball. He's the best three-point shooter we've ever seen. And his impact is basically bar none to anyone we've ever seen. I mean, you can go on and on about how Steph Curry changed the game with the likes of Michael Jordan and Dirk Nowitzki. He revolutionized the game, and we all know that. But, I mean, putting him at number 10 all time over Kobe Bryant and Hakeem Olajuwon, I mean, Steph Curry, his glaring mark that he does not have is a Finals MVP. And I'm not one of those people who trolls him and says, oh, Finals MVP, you got carried or something like that. I mean, but you do have to look at Steph Curry did not have a Finals MVP. He did underperform in a couple of finals. He did bounce back, and he arguably should have won a Finals MVP over KD, but he did not. So, I mean, Steph Curry, I think it is a little over-exaggerated how much he chokes in the finals or even underperforms in the finals. But, I mean, putting him number 10 all time, I think there's a legit debate between him and KD, like who's better all time. I think I might give the edge to KD, I might give it to Curry, depending on the day. But putting Curry over someone like Kobe Bryant or Hakeem Olajuwon, whose legacies are established, they won a championship as the guy, won the Finals MVP, and didn't underperform significantly when they won those Finals MVPs. I don't see how you can put Curry over those guys. And again, I'm just going to reiterate, this guy, net rating swing, box plus minus. I mean, what are these stats? I mean, just boiling it down to stats, I don't understand why this guy even has it. Why does he have a job at Bleacher Report? Can someone understand me? Is he trolling us? Is this for shock value? Is this for clicks? I think at this point, I honestly think this is just for shock value and for him to get more notoriety. Basically, he used all advanced analytics and basically obscure stats to compare players. And we all know that's not really how it works when looking at players in the totality of their career. And I'll cut him some slack right here. I mean, his 9-6 was pretty good. And his top 5, I would give like an A- to. He has the exact same 5 players I have in my top 5. It's a little different order. He has Jordan number 1. He has LeBron number 2, Kareem number 3, Magic 4, and Bird number 5. I think that's a pretty solid list. I think most people would agree with that. Even if they say, oh, someone else should be in there, most people can agree on that and reach common ground. And they don't think it's that blasphemous. But I mean, let's just go over and highlight the last points. Isiah Thomas at 47, Pau Gasol at 46, Ray and Reggie 43 and 44, Kawhi Leonard behind Paul Pierce, Manu Ginobili ahead of all those guys, Russell Westbrook only 1 spot ahead of Ginobili, James Harden at 27, semi-controversial, Kobe Bryant number 14, Hakeem at 13 behind David Robinson. I didn't even try to highlight on how is Kobe Bryant behind David Robinson. I'm not even going to get into that. I'm done talking about this list. But I mean, all in all, I would give this grade like a D+. I think this guy relies on advanced analytics way too much. And I think Bleacher Report really did themselves a disservice by putting this list out there. For me, this just delegitimizes every list they have. Looking at this, I mean, this is just no understanding of basketball past the top 5, which top 5 is pretty easy for every basketball fan to know. But I mean, past that, it's just contradiction after contradiction after little cherry-pick stats, all these advanced analytics, nothing really of substance with championships or winning or showing when they played in what era. There's nothing like that. I'll put the link to the list in the bio, but I mean, it's a really tough list to look at if you're not being like super critical. I try to remain objective and just give my input, but I think most people feel like this list is garbage and it is for shock value and trolling. I know a lot of people overreacted to Klay Thompson being at like number 47 on our list and Zion was ahead of him. I think that was definitely for pure shock value, but I expected more from an all-time list. I mean, people really are well-versed in all-time lists. I think a lot of people saw through this and think that it's pure garbage and really shouldn't be taken seriously. So, I mean, that's really all I have to say. But, I mean, if you guys want to see me drop my top 50 all-time, I'll try to see if I can work that out. It is a really daunting task and it is really hard. So, again, I'll give this guy credit for compiling the list, but the order was really whack. And as I said before, I give it like a D+, maybe a C- grade. I think he's just one of those guys who just simply looks at the stat sheet and just says, oh, player A better than player B. And I don't think that's the way you should evaluate basketball. But hey, that's my opinion. Thanks for watching. This was Uncut Hoops. I'll see you guys next time.